for each coil. And then you link those together to create the main coil to produce the frequency. A 12-inch diameter coil, about 8 feet tall, would put out about an 18-foot spark at 25,000 volts per inch. And you could stand in the middle of it like you see Nikola Tesla. And I got Joseph, he's my buddy, he's built 3 of these, and he's standing there with 18 feet of sparks coming out of his body. Pretty cool. But they're all high-frequency sparks. But still, this is the science that goes behind it and how you work out the math on it to build a coil. Once the coils are installed with no moving parts, you guys could heat, cool, run your cars for 1 cent per watt, per kilowatt, which would be free electricity. No more hydrocarbons, no more pollution. 24-hour-a-day lighting. The population is at 8 billion. For every one born, one has to die of starvation based on our current ability to create food. With this technology, you will have 24-hour-a-day of plant light to grow unlimited amount of plants, up to 100 million people on the planet, to feed them, using airborne horticulture towers, which run on mineral sprays into the roots. All the roots are just exposed to mineral spray atmospheres with 24-hour-a-day ultraviolet lighting, which would produce, in a room like this here, you could make as much food as you would in 40 acres of land using this technology with 24-hour-a-day of sunlight energy. With this technology, be basically free food. They do it at Disney World, at Epcot. They've got a whole center that's dedicated to these sciences. If you've been down there to see it, that's really, really cool. The Chinese are doing it all over the place in China because of their food population density. So technology exists. They just got to apply it. Question?
Also, could you raise more food if you would use genetically modified seed?
Yeah, Monsanto's got all that stuff going on in their chemtrails out there, which is made out of aluminum oxide, which creates a special condition in the soil which only their seeds will grow. And that's to control the food, because you control the food, you control the people. And every time you look up and you see all those chemtrails, all your commercial airlines have 5 to 7 little tubes that stick out at the end of the wing. 2 of them are sprayers to keep the chemicals in the toilet area of the plane, because nobody wants to go digging around in the toilet. And that's where they do the change out when a plane lands. They take out the old pollution, they put in the Monsanto chemicals, and then they spray it out from the wings when you see a plane going over. When a plane goes over and leaves a little trail behind it about 1,000 feet long, that's just vapor because of the temperature change at 65 below zero with jet fuel. And that's gone in a second. If it's a chemtrail, it's there permanently because it's a hard chemical of aluminum oxide.
Yeah, there's about a week ago. I've never seen so many. What was it, about a week ago?
In the morning.
I mean, they were as long as you could see. They were.
Now there is a second side to this. It's true we have the chemtrails. But if ET is here that is unfriendly and the chemtrails are a specific type of spray that creates an environment that is harmful to an invasive species from another planet that cannot exist within this chemtrail field, then they're doing it as a global defense mechanism, not alerting the people. It might come out sometime in the future, but right now the cover story is it's aluminum oxide used for controlling the food and the planting scenarios of the world. The other second story would be the ET issue, creating an environment that doesn't taste right, so that ET can't invade the planet. I mean, we've been sending out radio signals for 75 years now, so somebody's out there looking. So there might be some good side or bad side to it. Question?
Talking about ETs, where did we come from before we were here, or before we are here?
Your mother and father, of course. I can't answer that because I wasn't there. And that's the correct answer, by the way. Next question.
I have a question about where did you get your information about the world existing 110,000 years?
I wasn't there. Who said it existed 110,000 years? No, I said 50,000 years ago we had an ice age, and that's where the carbon dating comes from the spacecraft up there. That's all I said. As far as we had dinosaurs, and we know 385 was it 385 million years ago when the asteroid hit the Yucatan, took out the dinosaurs, created a fireball that went around the world because it ignited the hydrogen oxygen atmosphere. There was a lot of methane back then too. Dinosaurs make a lot of methane.
Well, are those dating methods accurate, and how do they know that?
Oh, it's in layers. It's in layers of the Earth. I have one of the largest megalodon shark's teeth in the world in my collection. The biggest one I know is at the Smithsonian Institute, which is 6 1/4 inch shark's tooth. I have a 5 3/4 inch shark's tooth from a 330-foot long megalodon shark with a bite radius of 18 feet. This ceiling is only 12 feet, so we're talking about a mouth that could take. It would be from this wall, from this divider to that wall, big around, and the teeth are all just shy of 6 inches apiece, and they're all razor sharp. And this is a 99% pristine tooth. It's got a little tiny chip about the size of the head of a pin on one side of it. And the tooth was found at 11,600 feet in Denver, Colorado, or actually Central City, Colorado, at a gold mine. And it came to me through the Denver International Airport, through a collector. And because I knew what it was, I knew where it came from, and I knew the history and all that kind of stuff, I bought it. I paid $500 for it. It's worth probably around $1,200 right now to any collector. Good investment if you ever find some big ones like that. They were digging. Here's another one about this specific topic. Tarpon Springs, Florida, 20 miles north of Clearwater, Florida, north of Tampa. If you want to they put a canal in 2,000 feet from the ocean in to build a subdivision with water. When they got back about 600 feet into the canal, they hit a cache of over 900 teeth that were 4.5 to 5 inches. And these teeth were all worth about $500 a piece. And the workers got paid more money for the shark's teeth in that cache that they found from one shark than they did in all the money to build a whole entire subdivision. So, and you go down if you want shark's teeth, you go to Naples. And Fort Myers is where people dive for shark's teeth. And they get 2 or 3 inches shark teeth. They're in the sand. You can sift for them. As divers, about 20 feet of water. Sharks have been going there for millions of years and dying and leaving their teeth behind. Yeah?
Back to the chemicals, what will be done to stop clean it up?
Coils. Of course, we've got to find out what the cause is. And I guess only the president and a few other men in black know about things like that.
So when you become president, who's going to teach us this stuff? Or who's going to teach the people?
Oh, I will. I'll get up on CNN. I guarantee I'll have a world audience. Of course, you put this video up on YouTube or MySpace or Facebook or whatever. The world's going to see it anyways. So, and every time we do a seminar, they videotape it and they throw it up on the internet. So there's plenty of stuff up there to study from. Yeah.
What's going on at the Denver airport?
Denver International Airport, for those who've ever been in Denver International Airport, that little puppy's made out of Kevlar. That's the roof. Looks pretty, don't it? Except it's all jointed, so it can all collapse and be flat on the ground. Now, underneath the Denver International Airport is a 1 cubic mile holding facility for 860,000 troops. It goes down in the mountain, and that's why there's a complete zone of about 6 miles completely surrounding the airport. And that's controlled by cameras and all kinds of other little surprises to protect that facility. And that's why it's way out in the middle of nowhere as nothing. They want to use that. They want to move the White House to the center of the United States, which is Denver. And Cheyenne Mountain Right now it's a museum, but Falcon, that's it. Fort Falcon Mountain is where the new Cheyenne Mountain Enter of SAC is existing. And they want to move our government into that location because of the safety. Right now, you can bring a submarine in under stealth right into the Potomac, and it's like 1 minute, Everybody remembers the 4.5 or 4.7 earthquake in South Carolina? That was a 20 megaton nuke that went off underground about, I want to say 1,500 feet underground. That was and when they detonated those 2 nukes up in North Korea, same seismograph. Look at all the seismographic history of every nuke that was ever detonated underground. It's all the same number. They were moving one underground, and it went off. And it was just an earthquake, and it shook Washington. Yeah.
Back to you about running for president. You said the last 47 were left-handed.
Yep.
I've seen you running right-handed.
Oh, boy. It's a good thing there's 2 pens up here. I got a little trouble with those bees yet. Come on, Dave. Get your head together. Think. I did that wrong.
Why are you writing cursive?
It says, we the unknown, led by the unknowing, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful. We've been doing so much for so long with so little, we're not qualified to do anything with nothing. So, I can... Okay. Oops, wrong way. Yeah. Okay? I can do it frontwards, backwards, both hands, both directions. I just run out of words there, that's all. I got to do it in cursive, though. I can't do it upside down yet. I'm working on that. That was. I had a guy in Salt Lake City who came to me and says, "That's good, Dave." He says, "But I can do it upside down too." And he did it frontwards, backwards, both hands, both directions, and he did it. Then he started doing it all upside down. I'm going like, I got to stand on my head to do it upside down. Can't do it that way. Okay, why did all this happen? Okay, why am I ambidextrous like this? Well, it's because, like I told you, I died when I was 25 years old. They took out my adrenal glands. What happened next was, they said, you can't be alive because you don't have adrenaline. I'm going, Okay, I'll buy that. Why are we having this conversation then? He says, your blood chemistry came back with 60 times more endorphins than you should have in your system, which makes me jacked happy and calm 24/7, right? Well, the endorphin of amino acid is the same one that used for the brain as food. So my neurons started multiplying because they had 60 times more food than normal, and my IQ exponentialized itself from 140 up to over 200 now, and it keeps going up all the time because of this super amount of food for the brain. And I'm always calm. Then you go ahead, and they said, why can you do that? Well, what happened is when the neurons started multiplying, they grew together. The movie Phenomena with John Travolta, where he has brain cancer of a fibristic cell, fibristic cancer. Well, my brain started growing neurons to a point where my two hemispheres grew together, so I have one brain. I see left and right simultaneously. I read 400 words a second, math codes from right to left, and I read words from left to right, and I syntax at the same time. I can't see, talk, or do anything without completely syntaxing it and writing it in the correct format in my brain as fast as I do it in fiction, both ways. It just happens. And I've been doing it for so long, for 12 years now, efficiently. And so anybody gets in my face about anything, I will give you a complete history lesson going back to the beginning of time and showing you things that are supposed to be. The book, Legenda. Legenda, in 1890, a Masonic temple was built in Austin, Texas. It had a footing poured 8 feet by 8 feet by 8 feet to support a 44-foot chimney. Well, back in 1860, they built that Masonic temple. And it was a 3-story building. And what the man did is he took legenda, dogma, and the Masonic codes from 1851 and 1859, all written on original cotton paper. And he wrapped them in paper and dipped them in beeswax, sealing them in beeswax. Then he put a 2-inch plaster Paris case around it in a wood box. Then he dipped that in beeswax and repeated the process 3 times. Henceforth, producing a time capsule that was sealed. That sealed time capsule was then put into an 8 by 8 by 8 foot concrete footing at the base of this Masonic lodge to support the chimney. The chief of the Apache Nation in Arizona was working under contract in Texas, West Texas, or rather in Austin. But he was from West Texas, but he was working in Austin. I was doing a seminar in Dallas at that weekend on Sunday. And his job was to take a 4-foot wrecking ball, and they had dug out this footing and break this hunk of concrete up because it was too big to move. And when he hit it with the ball, out pops this chest, and he figures, treasure, but it was a time capsule. Well, when he opened it up, chopped it open, he found all these books inside. And the books were in pristine condition after 140 years. And he opened them up, and it said, property of David Wynn Miller, punctuated. So he throws them in a paper bag, drives 260 miles to where I was, and he walks into my seminar at 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon with a grocery bag, and he walks up to me, and I knew the man. I was a chief in his own Indian nation because I broke the treaties with the United States Department of Interior and got the Apache Nation to put in casinos back between 1995 and 1999. In 1995, there were 92% of all American Indians were on welfare. In 1999, all American Indians were off of welfare. And there's 190 casinos in the United States now in Indian territories. And all treaties have been broken with the Department of Interior because of my syntaxing. So they made me a chief in 14 of the major Indian tribes in the United States. With that said, he calls me a white lighter, for those that understand what that means, and brought me this bag, and he comes in there and he says, Dave, I have these books. Do you know where they came from? I says, yeah, and I told him. And he says, they have your name in them. And he says, yeah, I know, they're mine. And he gives them to me and he leaves. Simple as that. And no, I'm not going to answer any more questions on that topic. Okay. So, curiosity goes forever.
You just put food on the table, told us not to eat it.
Yeah, well, ask me your questions. We'll go back over here again. When we disqualified the preposition as being no position, the article being a word of no contract, which gave you a no-no, we now realize that they had mistaught all of us what prepositional phrases were. And so we had in 2000, 2nd of January 2000, we again came out with the position loadial fact phrase. We also brought in past time and future time. A 1922 book, maybe a reader. It was a 1922 reader from the Depression. I was in Las Vegas, Nevada. And a lady by the name of Joy brought me this book and says, read page 9. I read page 9. It says, to, future time, from, past time. I'm going like, oh my God. All my technology from 1995 published to 2000 was written with the word to and from. As you know, a sentence can only exist with one idea. I'm going to the store from the house. 2 different time zones. The sentence is wrong because there's 2 different times. The future doesn't exist, and the past has no damage. So therefore, we dropped all future and past, and it took me 3 months to rewrite my program, removing all the prepositional facts, bringing everything into now time. Present time, PRE means no, sent, which is contract. So you had 3 choices, the past, the present, and the future, all meaning no contract. So we had to go to now time. So we created the now time, and then the conjunction, and is a command, and or is an option. Do you know that lesson cost me $1,600 to learn what and or meant? I had a real estate company, I told you, for 26 years, and I evicted one of my tenants. It was December, before Christmas. It said, quit and pay rent. And the judge was ready to sign it, and the clerk goes, you can't sign that. He says, why not? He says, because he gave you a command. He commanded the people to quit and get out. He says, you only have jurisdiction if there's an option, judge. And this is the clerk telling the judge. It must say quit or pay rent. Now, if the or doesn't act within a given amount of time, which is 10-day notice, then the judge can sign an order for the sheriff's department to go out and evict the individual. He says, that's right. This is wrong because you used and instead of or. Start over. 45 days later, get a court date. 45 days after that for eviction. That's 90 days. Got to stay in my house for 3 more months, not paying rent. Cost me $1,600 because they used and or. Anybody seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire? You haven't seen the movie Slumdog? I strongly recommend, won the Academy Award that year. Rent it at the video store and watch it. It's a story about a boy from the age of 6 to 18 in India. It was made in India, filmed in India, and he got on a game show. It's a true story. And in this game show, he answered every question correct to win 1 million rubles, or 1 million US, which was 20 million in rubles. And what's unique about it is every question that was asked now flashes back to his position in life, that he lived the experience. He knew the correct answer because he was there and lived it. And that's what's unique. And he won the money, and he became a hero throughout India. Won an Academy Award, and he's done like maybe 10 more movies since then where they've all been really, really great movies. I mean, this is 5-star quality. When I heard it, people told me to go see it. Well, I want to see a movie from India. Well, I've seen it 4 times now. It's probably one of the best foreign movies I've ever witnessed. And for acting, quality, and it's a true story. Myself, I'm the same way. I have been in court. I have written the lawsuits. I have made the mistakes. I've been through all these stupid things, all the landmines that you can step on, I stepped on and survived to stand up here and say, don't go there. Don't do it. When I write a lawsuit for you in quantum grammar under the document, contract, federal, postal, vessel, because paper is a vessel, federal court venue, don't go into the United States District Court and talk to these people. They are a fiction. They are a foreign vessel. You are not in Indiana. You are in the Indiana territory. Stay in your territory. In 48 days, we will file a fault judgment because if they don't sign the contract, I have a contract to dock my correct vessel as the correct court, as the correct judge, and the clerk of the court now becomes the correct judge. In the event that clerk will not sign the correct document and be part of that, it goes to the U.S. Attorney's Office, goes to the Attorney General's office, who then will prosecute the case under the False Claims Act for forensic evidence. You'll get your money. Then it goes to your labor, goes to Tyrone Williams in Arkansas, who is working with the Attorney General and the IRS as our collection agency, because they want their $1.5 million for every lawsuit I write. And we're going to pay out next week on these. So this is a real thing that's really happening, and we have cooperation from over 1,000 attorney generals across the United States, both attorneys and assistants. Yes?
Did I hear you say next week?
Yeah, I was told last week Monday that we got 10 days till payout, which is next week. So, if yours went in before March 6th, you'd be in that group. Okay. The ones that we filed were dated for the last 3.5 years, which were settled on March 6th, 2012 in California. And those are the groups that are being paid out right now. And they have a continuous rotation now that each one of the quantum cases that comes in is a signed confession. The bank's already confessed that these are legitimate, so they will be paid as fast as they come in or negotiated. Yes?
I have a couple questions on for one, on the mortgage fraud suit. I think you indicated that we were supposed to initially send that to ourselves, registered mail, to get the corporation number.
Your corporation number was sent on your fault judgment. It's already been filed for you. I did it. Everybody that has cases in here with me, your cases have already been filed registered mail. I have your serial numbers. They're in my book. If you don't have a copy of it, if you physically do not have a copy of it, I have it stuck in my book.
Okay, yeah, ours was blank.
Right, but you would fill those in after the fact. But I have copies of those already and they're registered.
Okay.
So, yes.
Go back to the mortgages. It doesn't matter what state you're in?
All 50 states are the same. All 64 million mortgages in the United States were set up by the banking industry to be a fraud, established in 1934 to be harvested. When the year of Jubilee ended, anywhere from 6 to 9 page documents that were used prior to that were all null and void. And in the 2nd of February 2000, a new contract was issued by the United States Department of Housing and bankers from the post office and was standardized throughout the United States. There are variables between private investors and the industry and the National Banking Association. There's a slight variables. They had to follow the same criterias, but I have 38 different copies of banks that I've done. So what's happening is I've syntaxed all of the 38 different mortgages. They take about 40 hours apiece to syntax. And then I match them up to make sure that everything is, and it's already been recertified by college professors and university professors and U.S. attorneys' offices all over the United States, as this guy knows what he's doing. This is a math procedure. This thing cannot be defeated. It's been tested in 150 languages in every country of the world. It's been proven to be an original program from A to Z. The website, my books, all original, no plagiarizing. I know of 3 people that tried to plagiarize and charge people $1,500 to come to a seminar to to mimic my website, talk about the videos on my website, and then sell postal badges to people for $2,200, thinking they wouldn't have to pay taxes. Within, I would say, 8 to 12 hours, upon doing a seminar for this, the FBI was notified because my students are always watching. And my students are everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean that literally. And it's almost impossible to get through a gauntlet without bumping into one of my students someplace who's going to immediately pick up the phone and say, hey, Dave, we got a guy here that's identified himself to be you or plagiarizing you. And because you call me on this cell phone, my cell phone, you're talking to the FBI. Anybody calls me on this cell phone, you want to talk to a judge, just call me on the cell phone. The FBI will record it, immediately transmit it within a few minutes to the federal judge responsible in that case, and he will be brought up to speed that I've been notified that now he is on my list of people to pay attention to. And you might go to court the next morning and find out your case has been vacated, that you're not going to jail for whatever reason you went to court for, and it's hands off. Get away from this thing as fast as possible. We have too many people that don't know what's going on to harvest. It'll be nice and easy, but if you touch this guy, you touch his students, he's going to drop a nickel on you, and you're going to have a problem. Yeah.
Okay, I have another area of concern. I don't know if you recall this or not, I had originally when you did the suit for me regarding the charges in the local court, I didn't file it in the district court originally. I just went and documented it. And then you had told me that I could just copy that.
Yeah, you can file that. That case is clean. It's a federal case.
Okay, here's my question. Do I literally just copy everything, or do I have to apply a new stamp and
Oh, no, that you have to do. You have to put a new stamp on any new thing. Do not photocopy postage stamps. Postage stamps are legal money. You get caught photocopying postage stamps. That's counterfeiting. That's serious. So don't do that, please. Just for your own public, for your safety, because then you're going to be. The government makes photocopies and they keep it electronically held in the computer, but that's Title 18, Section 1343, mail fraud, wire fraud, to copy a lawsuit and put it into a computer. They have to maintain my lawsuits bonded together as a hard copy paper in the chief judge's vault. It's not even allowed to be filed in the record room. You can go file and come back tomorrow and say, we don't know who you are, you weren't here. That's because the chief judge has it, and they assign a new case number. They take and they put another United States District Court paper over our heading, and they photocopy it into the computer, so if anybody comes looking, which would be an attorney or a judge or a lawyer, that they're only going to see United States District Court bringing you into their fiction under a brand new case number. Don't touch it. It's not your name. It's not your case number. It's not your venue. It's not your grammar. You've got 48 days. They don't do it right, we sue them for fault. Done deal. Attorney General takes it because they're getting $20 million a pop off of these pocket money. So they're not playing games. They're going after the people after the fact. And all of a sudden, like that judge, all of a sudden, you don't work here anymore. Where'd he go? They don't want to advertise that judges can be prosecuted or are going to disappear into the woodwork because of false and misleading statements, because they don't want the criminals, the real criminals, the drug dealers, the bank robbers, the murderers, to know how to get out of trouble. Okay? I don't do those. Yes, go ahead.
You had made a comment earlier, when we get these stamps, when we file the claim,
Yeah.
we're supposed to sign it
Right.
over the stamp.
We'll use your autograph, yes.
What happens if we didn't do that?
Well, I did it. I'm the federal judge on your case, so I have the authority on there. But as far as personally, you should autograph that stamp, making you a postmaster, banker, and judge of your own claim to bring it to the attention. So whatever documents you still are in possession of at home, autograph those. Fingerprint is a notary. Do not go to a notary. That's a fiction. Use your index finger or your thumb. And that is your notary on your autograph, like what you've got there.
He was talking about right here, signing right here. Is that where we should sign?
Oh, across their stamp? Yeah. Oh, whether you do or don't, that isn't going to change your authority. Yeah, no, as long as you signed your postage stamp there, that's the legal one.
Okay.
Because that's not an imitation.
I thought you was applying to their stamp.
I sign that stamp because I'm a federal judge,
Okay.
and I'll walk in there and say, "Hey, I signed your stamp. I'm a federal judge here, same as I am on my vessel." So I can trump their ability to move paper from one jurisdiction to another. Question?
When we sign across the file here, do we have to take our ink in and,
I do. Usually when you're in front of the clerk, she doesn't have a stamp, or don't have a stamp pad. We carry stamp pads when I go to court.
take that in and use our fingerprint?
If nothing else, lick your finger and do it. You got DNA, fingerprint, and autograph. That's a triple certification. Okay, that's another thing. One is an opinion, folks. So if one of you stands up and says something, it's an opinion. 2 is a certification. Now you got to be certified. That's legal. 3 is an authorization. That gets to move things. 4 more is a class action. You need 16 or more to bring attention to the Attorney General, which we have, I think we've got over 16 cases now in Indiana. So the Indiana State Attorney General can get involved. Right now, Kamala Harris in California is the Attorney General that is working with because she's got over 100 of these now. And so they were able to use a class action and go to the different banks and say, here's all the lawsuits, the syntaxing on every one of them is identical. They may be 38 different banks, and the sentences may be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and they may have moved the sentences around, but all the same sentences appear someplace with that exact phraseology. And when you do an overlay of the whole thing, we account for 99% of every one to be identical, but the modification of the grammar with the math codes, you can flip these things and read 300 words a second, and in 15 seconds go through a 15-page document and say, this has got 5,000 mistakes on it, and that isn't a mistake. That's not a misspelled word. That's engineered. And in 2 places of the document it says, false and misleading statements is a criminal penalty, and a misspelled word doesn't change the document. There are no misspelled words. The syntax is wrong in all 5,000 words. It's engineered. It's not a mistake. Now, there's a thing called the McNulton rule. That's M apostrophe N. McNulton. N-A-G. I think that's how it's spelled. It's the very first word under the letter M in Black's Law Dictionary, 4th, 5th, and 6th, 7th, and 8th editions. It doesn't appear before that because the McNulton rule came out in 1966, and Black's 4th edition was published in 1968. That's why it's in the 4th. If you've got anything earlier, it won't show up. Okay, what is the McNulton rule? It's called the right-wrong rule. The right-wrong rule means if you have knowledge of a lie, perjury, false and misleading statements, or fictitious conveyance of grammar, and you do it, that means you're guilty. If you don't know you've done it, then you can't be held liable for it. Like a police officer standing up and say, I saw you go through a stop sign. But the way he said it, the grammar was wrong. So he doesn't understand syntax because he was never trained in it. But the fact that you went through a stop sign, if you can make an argument of physics, 2 objects can't occupy the same space, it'll get thrown out. But if you said you failed to stop for a sign, and then you rolled past the sign, or you rode through the intersection without stopping, using the correct grammar, then you'd be found guilty, okay? Because he's a professional witness. And after all, you would be in a fiction court, and 99.99% of the people wouldn't even know they're being hoodwinked by syntax in the first place if you didn't know how to speak in the correct format. So the McNulton rule, the judge stands up and says, and Banks stood up and said, for 3.5 years, I don't know anything about this. The lawyers wrote this for us. The lawyers work for the corporate. The corporate is a machine. The machine says, we're looking for a person. A person is a corporation. We're looking for a human being. We're looking for a thinking person. The thinking person doesn't exist. So, what do we have? We have a corporation with a signed confession. Because this corporation stood up and said, I'm responsible for this, give me the house. And then I have a signed confession for false misleading statements, and I can do my job and you can get paid. Pretty simple. And when they, under the McNaughton rule, they did this a few times and they got away with it. And then I said to them, doing something 6,000 times to perfection is not a misspelled word. That's a perfection of engineering. And you can't stand up and say you did something 6,000 times and didn't understand what you were doing. That ain't going to wash with any jury. And I got my conviction. They confessed, and we've already picked up $140 billion in damages since March 6th. Just to show you how effective I am. The judgments on my technology are the biggest in recorded history anywhere on the planet. And I'm the cash cow for the bank, for the government, for the post office, and for the people. Everybody likes me. Even the criminals love me. Because they're going like, if I get into trouble, I'm going to call Dave. So nobody bothers me. I'll tell you a cute story once. This goes back about 10 years ago. I got out of a local watering hole about 6 blocks from my house, and I walked in there. I sat down and have a beer afterwards. About 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And there was a large rumbling outside, and in comes, it was 38 Milwaukee Outlaws, motorcycle gang, with all their chains and their leather and their knives and all their attitude. And I'm sitting there, and a guy walks up to me. He goes, "You're sitting in my chair." There's 200 chairs in here. Go pick a different one. He says, "You're outnumbered 38-1. I said, "No, I'm not." I says, "This is my chair. You go find a different one." So he pulls out a 12-inch Bowie knife, and he grabs my tie, and he puts it underneath there, and he says, "You an attorney?" I says, "No, I'm a federal judge, and I prosecute judges for a living." I says, "And you still go find yourself another chair." He says, "You ain't afraid." I says, "What do I got to be afraid for? You ain't going to do anything." I says, "All your frazzle," I says, "doesn't mean anything." I says, "You think you can pull that knife?" I says, "Go ahead and try it." I says, "I'm going to finish my beer, and you're not going to be here." And he goes, "What does that mean?" I says, "Do I look worried?" I says, "You're not going to be here." So there was an Indian in court with me that morning as he watched me prosecute a judge. And he says, "Hey, wait, no." He says, "That's Judge Miller." He says, "I watched him prosecute a judge this morning. He is who he says he is." So the president of the club steps in and says, "Okay, put it away." He says, "Well," I says, "It's still my chair." He says, "I ain't moving." He says, "Well, let me buy you a beer." He says, "There's an apology for that." He says, "Well, as long as you're buying me a beer and I'm going to be here for a few minutes drinking my beer, how'd you like to know how to get out of your traffic tickets?" So I said, "You just go to court, you sue for the correct parsing, syntax, grammar, for the avoidance of perjury." Boy, that like rang a bell in everyone's ears, and this guy picks me up, puts me up on the thing, and says, "Do a seminar." So for 35 minutes, I had 3 beers, and I did a presentation on grammar. And the guy goes, "Here's my business card. Anybody bothers you, you just call me up. We'll break your legs." So, and that was the last time I had a run-in with those boys. And it's been pretty quiet. Nobody's ever bothered me. So, when it comes to court stories, I've got dozens of them. Yeah, go ahead.
When we file for the second one, after you say after the 48 days, it's got to be 48 at least.
Yes.
48 to what? What if you don't get on 48 days, like 50 something?
Oh, you got a year to file after, so don't worry about, that's as fast as you can file your fault. You're going to take your quo warranto complaint and your fault document contract claim, and you're going to send it to the Attorney General to the attention of the Indiana False Claims Act Task Force.
Sent in by a third party.
No, by you. You only got to do the first servicing with an independent party for the quo rental. After that, you can take care of all your own filings. You'll be given that form along with instructions of who to contact. Okay? So I've got all this covered. These forms just came out the 28th of August. Today is the 24th of September. So they've only been on the market for 4 weeks. So as I've been traveling, I've been in Hawaii and California and in San Francisco, LA, San Diego, Honolulu, Maui, Big Island. Been here in Milwaukee, in Milwaukee. But every few days, I'm in a different part of the world. I move around really fast. And the U.S. Attorney's Office, along with the Marshal Service, track me 24/7. And every time I walk into a courthouse, I don't care where it is in the United States, they already have my pictures hanging up that if this guy shows up, you will call the Marshal Service and U.S. Justice Department wants to sit down and talk to this guy. El pronto. So it's always a lot of fun, yeah.
Speaking of walking to a courthouse, I have, just want to know what I need to do, if there's anything I need to do ahead of time on my trial date, and how that process is going to work.
You will not have a trial date for the document, contract, federal, postal, vessel at all.
Okay, I'm talking about the,
Bankruptcy?
no,
The other criminal side. Okay. The criminal, when that takes place, I'm a claimant on your case. I'm a claimant on all your cases that I've written. That means you can put me on the phone and I can testify by phone. My question to the prosecuting attorney is, can you produce the law, rule, regulation, or code written with the correct parse, syntax, grammar for the avoidance of perjury? I've syntaxed the lawsuit. I've syntaxed the DA, the indictment. It's physical evidence that have been supplied to you. Your lawsuit should be turned over to the Attorney General in Indianapolis or in South Bend, Indiana, where you have your federal courts, as this individual at the state level is creating an illusion by which he is trying to say there's a law that doesn't exist to prosecute me under the McNulton rule. And you invoke the McNulton rule under the right-wrong, showing why this person under Title 42, 1986, for knowledge of the correct parse, syntax, grammar, stop and correct his own paperwork to do it correct. If you have a complaint against me, then use correct grammar. Show me where the Congress, the Senate, the legislature, and the Supreme Court of the state of Indiana has created a law, rule, regulation, or code that is in the correct grammar by which I've violated. Doesn't exist. I'll tell you that right now. So don't pretend like you understand what they say. The answer to any question is, can I see that in the correct parse, syntax, grammar for the avoidance of the perjury? And I don't care how many times you got to say it. Do it for an hour. You got 50 questions, repeat it 50 times.
Repeat that again. Can I see?
Okay.
if we have an order from the judge to produce or whatever,
The word order is spelled how? O-R-D, a vowel, two consonants? No contract?
So you just ignore it or not? And they come out and
Don't forget the judge is not on your plane. There. You can repeat that sentence to anything that fiction has to say to you, and in most cases, we'll vacate the case within that one sentence.
Even when they ask me for my name?
We did that already. What is your name? Now, he's going to say, well, arrest the nom de guerre, uppercase spelling, which is a dead person, name assigned to your driver's license, because it identifies you as a nom de guerre dead person. And as a citizen, you have your state ID as a nom de guerre identity, henceforth putting you in the jurisdiction, but you've already entered the courthouse. So therefore, you left Indiana. You now are in the state of Indiana, which is the name of the courthouse, as a foreign vessel in dry dock controlled by the port authorities. While on that vessel, you have now trespassed, and no matter what you're there for, you're in a trespassing position, unless you have a United States passport and you have your paperwork filed ahead of time with the clerk of the court in possession of the stamp, put my business card on with a flag on it, a stamp, and you would then become a postmaster under the correct parse, syntax, grammar, advertised with your contract to say, I have a contract here with the correct parse, syntax, grammar. This individual sitting next to me, who would be the DA, doesn't. So therefore, you're in a superior position. Because you signed a stamp, you now become the federal court judge in that plane, because that's a federal flag on a federal plane. You have a federal stamp and a federal flag on your paperwork, and you're wearing a federal flag. So how does a state court in fiction, where the judge isn't on your plane, now capture you? Your position then is to turn to the bailiff and say, I deputize you as my tip staff, stand to attention. I have a federal oath, and you can if you had one of my oaths and had the knowledge, you could back that up. I can back it up. But I'm also a sovereign. I'm also granted a sovereign's country, the director of my own country through the United Nations. As the condition of state in a world of fiction is so unique that the United Nations had to make me the 200th member of the United Nations. I don't pay a $1.6 million a year fee to the United Nations, because how does a fact contract with a fiction? But the fiction still has to recognize that the condition of state does exist in quantum. Henceforth, I exist as a sovereign condition of state amongst a world of fiction, and I'm recognized by the fiction not to touch. But to be a teacher, as a plenipotentiary judge, to go out in the world and do so, as an ambassador contracted with 82 countries, have diplomatic immunity to that end. So once I got that, they locked the door behind me. I'm the only guy that does it. They gave me that position, and I've been completely honorable and trustworthy to that position and responsible. And it's published all over the world, and it's respected by the other countries. And that's why the Justice Department and the State Department and the judges around the world are hands-off. This guy is who he says he is.
So what is the paperwork that I have to have filed in the court before I get there?
As a person who has signed a stamp, you have a constitution on your document. That constitution is like an oath of office. But to have an oath as a judge responsible only to your piece of paper that you have signed that stamp on, and file an additional oath with that, with the clerk of the courts. It says you will only be responsible to be a federal judge on your own personal document for the correct parse, syntax, grammar. And as a judge, you're immune from prosecution. But you have to be correct at all times. If you don't know what to say, don't talk an adverb verb. Say nothing. You've got your paperwork, speaks for you. 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4. If you write it on paper, I can see what it equals up to. But if you're going to get me into an oral argument with 150 variables, you ain't going to win. It's nonsense. So don't even go there. Or 4 plus 4 equals 8. FOR plus FOUR equals ATE. Or ATE and EAGHT equals ATE. I mean, we can do this all day long. Did you hear what I said, what I meant, what I said, what I said, what I meant, what I said? Yes.
So he would ask, so do you send the mail? Like if the judge would ask you, so what's your mailing address? Or is this your mailing address? You just say,
This is conversation. This is conversation.
So you say, for the claimant's knowledge of the facts is with, would you say that?
Yes, exactly. That you're asking him, ask me a sentence that's in written quantum language. All the information is in the paperwork. And you can say, for the witness's knowledge of the fact is with the document, with the docked document in front of you. Because that is the court. You've given him written information. He's trying to get you into an oral argument. Just as this is a case with a man by the name of George. This is in Los Angeles, California. George was having his home repossessed. And the district attorney had him in court 12 times in a year. Well, they brought me in on the 12th hearing. 47 people piled into the courtroom because I was there. And my contract with George was to vacate the case and give him clear title to his house. So George comes in, he gets before the judge, he says, I have counsel. And the judge says, okay, counsel, come up. I says, the prosecuting attorney over here has 110 pages. I've syntexed all 110 pages. It says absolutely nothing. He's used false and misleading information, fictitious conveyance of grammar, and has committed mail fraud because he's taken a paycheck for committing this fraud in the first case under misappropriations. Judge says, you're correct. That document does say nothing. I hereby vacate the case. George, you have your house clear title. The court will not take it from you. And then the judge stood up, took off his robe, laid it on the bench, got off the robe thing, came down, walked over to the side door, a room about this size, opened the door up, turned around and says, hey, George, congratulations on your win. George is just still standing there. He says, let's do something different. He says, why don't we say that the paperwork that the district attorney did here, after a whole year now, is actually a fact. And he did everything correct. Will you agree to that? Is that okay with you? And George says, okay. He says, take his house. And walked out the door. And he stood there after he said the word okay in front of 44 people. And he goes, and you, meaning me, he goes, are you Judge David Wynn Miller from Honolulu, Hawaii? The one that prosecutes judges? I says, yes. He says, you got 10 seconds to hit the door and get out of here. He says, because I'm going to have you arrested for trespassing on my vessel in dry dock. And I was out the door because I was in the peanut gallery and I had 3 marshals chasing me. I got out the door in time. But George lost his house. He stood there and he just glowed like a light bulb. My contract was to get his house back. I won the house, I got kicked out of court, and he lost the house. He should have kept his mouth shut and walked out of the door, yes. So then everybody, we went all outside in the parking lot, and I said to the people, did I win the case? They said yes. Did I fulfill my contract? They all said yes. Did George give back his house to the district attorney? Everybody said yes. Am I liable? Everybody said no. Enough said about that. Let's go back to the seminar. So we all had a seminar this afternoon. Another case, George. This is a different George in San Francisco. We go into court. This is a state court. George is he's there for illegal detainer, trespassing for the 3rd time on the property he was evicted from. He paid a $10,000 fine and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. This was the morning he was to report at 9 o'clock to surrender to the marshals. So he says, Dave, will you come to court with me? He says, I'm going to go to jail for 2 years. Is there anything you can do for me? I says, well, let's go to court and see what happens. So he presented me with a six-page document for his illegal detainer and trespassing. I syntaxed it from the prosecuting attorney and wrote a Title 42 lawsuit, similar to the same ones that you that have mortgages are similar to, or like your own for criminal. That was the basis for this lawsuit. The judge, George, goes into court and says, Your Honor, I have counsel. When he was asked, anything do you have to say? So I walked up and I says, I have bailiff. I says, give these papers to the judge. And bailiff came over, took them, handed them to the judge. Judge immediately stands up, looks at him and goes, this is a federal case. This is a state court. He says, you can't file these here. Take them back. I says, that's a federal flag. That's a federal stamp. I hold a federal judge's oath on this plain, incorrect grammar. You don't have a correct grammar. I syntaxed your oath, and I syntaxed the district attorney, and if you look at that, I'm prosecuting your district attorney for false and misleading information. And that individual is facing a $25 million fine and 30 years in prison for trying to cheat this individual and put him in jail for 2 years at $75,000 an hour. Under Sanders v. English 950 Fed 2nd, I have grounds under Title 42, 1986, for knowledge of the fraud that's been perpetrated, and I am here as a federal judge to stop and correct it. Well, this is a federal court. I says, you're not even in court. You're on a different plane than the rest of us. Bailiff, I hereby deputize me as my tip staff. Arrest that individual for impersonation of a judge, and arrest this individual over here as I have a warrant for a federal crime that he has committed, and here's his warrant. Judge goes, wait, stop. We're going to do something different. I'm hereby vacating all charges against George. Bailiff, I want you to go downstairs and erase him from the system. Give him back his $10,000 plus interest for 2 years, which is $3,000. Cut him a check for $13,000. George, all charges have been dropped against you. You are free to go. Now, Mr. Miller, I have vacated all charges against George. I've given back all of his money. Therefore, there is no contract between the state of California and George. So therefore, you have no complaint because everything's been vacated. Prosecuting attorney is a Chinese man. Stands up and says, I object, Your Honor. He says, I just saved you $25 million. So shut up and sit down. So he shuts up. And then she goes, wait a minute. What's your name again? This is David, David Wynn Miller. Are you that judge from Hawaii? He goes, the very same. She goes, oh, okay. I says, bailiff, arrest the judge. She took off and ran out of the courtroom. Meantime, the bailiff took George and went down. And then after she vacated the room, the district attorney just sat there like a bum. The bailiff took George and went downstairs and checked him out. So we're outside. About 20 minutes later, he comes out with his check for $13,000. Free man, didn't have to go to prison for 2 years. And he goes, I didn't get my house. I says, my contract was so that you didn't want to go to jail. My contract was to vacate all charges. My contract was to get your money back. Didn't I fulfill all my contracts with you? And I got 22 people there from my seminar that came with me and they wanted to watch me in court do this. There it was. He said, well, you fulfilled all your terms of the contract, made the case go away. George is free. He bought me a cup of coffee. Third case scenario, IRS, Miami, Florida. Lady comes to my seminar. She goes, can you do IRS? And she says, yeah, real simple. I've won over $10 million in IRS cases, about 12 of them to date. She says, well, I got to be in court tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, in IRS court down at the federal building. Will you come with me? I said, sure, it'd be fun. So, being in Miami, I was on vacation, and I put on my surfer shorts, my surfer shirt, and my flip-flops, because I was on vacation. I go with her. And we walk into the IRS office, and The IRS agent comes in. He's 33 years old, by the way. And she says, she asked me, she says, what do I do? I says, well, give them all of your paperwork. Cooperate 100%. And the IRS agent says, are you an attorney? I'm going, no, I'm not an attorney. He says, do I look like an attorney? I said, I'm on vacation. So she says, oh, well, I want David to come in here with me. I just need some moral support. I'm kind of nervous about all this stuff. And he goes, well, okay, Dave, you can come in and sit next to her. So I sat there quiet for about an hour. Every time he asks for something, she says to me, should I give him the paperwork? I says, yes, fully cooperate. Well, the IRS was real pleased. The fact that I was giving her moral support, helping the IRS get all the paperwork filed. He wrote out all the forms from 2004, 5, and 6, 3 years. After the paperwork was all filled out, 8 pages, she owed $38,000 in back taxes. So she then signs the forms, slides them across the table, and I says to the IRS agent, I says, mind if I ask a question? Are you an attorney? I says, I thought we discussed that already. I says, that's a question. If she committed false and misleading information to you, can you prosecute her? Oh, yes. So can I ask you another question? If she committed perjury in this interview, as you have a recorder here and you recorded it for the IRS, can you prosecute her for perjury? He says, yes, we can. He says, you want her to sign right here, is that correct? Under penalty of perjury? You know that under is an adverb, means no contract. Of penalty, which is a verb. Of is an adverb, making perjury a verb. You want to show me the verb perjury and penalty in the dictionary? Isn't that false and misleading information? Isn't that perjury by your own confession? And then I syntaxed in the next 35 minutes, all 8 pages. As I identify, I says, oh, by the way, I'm the federal judge of the United States, chief federal judge, and you just committed 47 felonies in front of me. Grabs up all the paperwork. I'll be back. Takes off. About a minute goes by, and all of a sudden there's screaming in the back room. Yell, 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 yell. This goes on for like 5 minutes. Then the supervisor in Miami, IRS, sticks his head out. Oh, Judge Miller, you're here. Well, yeah, I've got a 3x5 picture of me hanging on the wall in there. So he pops his head back in, and more screaming goes back in. It's quiet for about 2 minutes, and about 12 minutes goes past, and he comes walking out. Madam, here's your form. All your taxes have been canceled. You have 0 balance. You're free to go. Have a nice day. She bought me an espresso. Tastes like mud. So, you say, I do a lot of stuff for fun. And anybody, I don't care. I haven't seen anybody that had a problem from any form of anything in the books of law that qualify, that I can't handle. I do not do murder. I do not do bank robbery. I do not do drug dealers. I do not do rape cases. I do not do public safety violations. You drive 40 miles over the speed limit, have fun in court, because I'm not going to defend you. I'm not going to say anything to assist you. That's reckless and endangerment of public safety. I don't touch any of those cases. I have an agreement with the government not to publish lawsuits on the internet because criminals would use them for the wrong purpose. And then, for that fact, it would go anywhere. If you do have a case with me, I respect that you will treat it with respect. If I am on your case, I will sign and fingerprint, or autograph and fingerprint your cases. I will be there in the event you have a judge that will sign that document and be a federal judge, or one comes out of Washington of the 300 judges that are assigned to work with me out of Washington in your jurisdiction and orders me to court by subpoena, I will show up and I will testify and do a presentation in front of the grand jury. I was ordered to Michigan. After 7 attempts to go in front of a grand jury, I finally made it in front of a grand jury. And when I testified, we were probably 2 hours on the witness stand in front of the grand jury. And the Attorney General, who was cross-examining me, every single question he asked, I syntaxed and made an ass out of him. I mean, the guy was really beaten up by me on the witness stand. And then finally, I was on the witness stand, and he made a comment to the judge. I'm going, "You're out of order." The judge says to me, "Judge Miller, there's only one judge in the courtroom, and it's my courtroom, and I'm the judge." I'm going, "Oh, yes, okay." Then the judge perks up and says, "You're out of order." And then the judge says to me, "Do you have a passport?" I said, "Sure, I got a passport, driver's license, insurance cards, MasterCard, Visa, bank cards, a checking account." I says, "I got a mortgage, carry insurance." He goes, "I thought you were sovereign." "Well, I am sovereign. I'm allowed 2 identities." He goes, "Yeah, that's true. You are allowed 2 identities." I just tell you what, Judge, why don't we cut to the chase here? In front of the grand jury, it says, "Here's my passport. You're a federal judge. Why don't you go in the back room and contact the U.S. Department of Immigration and Customs and run my passport?" I said, "It's going to take you about a half an hour to go through it. It's about 38 pages long." He goes, "There's only a couple of pages here." I says, "Run my passport." I says, "Then you're going to find out who's sitting in your courtroom." So he's gone for 35 minutes. He comes back and he says, "Judge Miller," he says, I apologize. He says, here's your documents back." Very impressive. He goes, "Never seen anything like that before." 38 pages long it was, just like you said. And he says, "Davis," he says, "he's just made an ass out of you. We have no more questions for him. Judge Miller, you're free to go." Yeah.
So what do I need to do to get you here quickly for my court meeting?
When's your court date?
October 30th.
October 30th? I'm going to be, I don't know, maybe I could make it. I got to be in Court of Claims in Washington, D.C. It's on the way. On the 5th, that's Monday. You got I think you got Friday. Thursday or Friday? Washington's always fun around election time. Tuesday, that's a whole week. Well, I'm on your case. I can sit in court with you and, argue the syntax. That's not a problem. Probably be a lot of fun. I'm free those days.
I think we'll have an audience.
Yeah, I think we'll have an audience. There usually is standing room only when I show up. In Wisconsin, when I go to court, people come from 500 miles around to just watch a traffic case. You can't even get in the courtroom. Judge walks out in the court in the hallway and he says, "Miller, come on outside here with the DA. We're going to do it outside in front of here where there's no witnesses." Then the DA's running down the hall. "He won't talk to me. He won't talk to me." Except in quantum grammar. He won't. So
is there a process for that, or are you just going to show up and...
Well, let me know what your dates are and times. Okay. It's only about a 3-hour drive from Milwaukee.
Is this okay for my badge?
Yeah. Except that's the wrong flag.
The wrong flag.
Yeah. That's a 1x2 flag for one thing. Your blue field is 40-60, and from here I can see it's a 50-50.
Okay.
You can download one off my internet site. It's no, you didn't. Your computer shrunk it or did something, but that's not a print. Yeah, it changed the size of it. It's 1 to 1.9. The one on my business card is correct.
I need one of the business cards.
Oh, okay. Well,
They're in the wall.
no, they're in my. I had them in my bag at the room. So.
Just a couple of miscellaneous questions. If somebody, how about like with the credit bureaus or liens on your property or anything like that?
Well, when you guys deal with MasterCard, every time you sign your MasterCard, you're making a promise to pay. I mean, you took the money. Now, here's a little trick that you don't know about. When you guys use MasterCard, it's earned income. If you discharge it in bankruptcy, the government will wait 3 years and come back and sue you for failure to pay your state, federal, and Social Security taxes on the earned income you discharged in bankruptcy, and sue you for 125% from the IRS, which you can't discharge. And you think you were in trouble before you couldn't pay your bills? Now you're in trouble with the IRS. Will sell your home, cars, and anything else you own, and they'll come after you from that location. And you can't file bankruptcy against the IRS claims, especially with that position.
Okay, so the sin tax wouldn't work in those areas?
The sin tax works except when you file bankruptcy, you are saying, what's in my hand? Nothing. You filed bankruptcy against nothing. Why do you file bankruptcy? You filed bankruptcy because you want to discharge a fact. Bankruptcy takes the nothing and makes it into a fact. Therefore, the fact is taxable. How do you think England captured New Zealand, Australia, India? Is because England figured out way back in the 13th century that if you file bankruptcy against an invasive people, take the Aborigines. They don't speak or read English. They only have picture writing. So, in their pictures, articulate their land, their treaties, their boundaries, and there's 3,450 Aborigine tribes in Australia. But they got 10,000 gold mines. The country is a virtual mine of gold, silver, lithium, titanium, cobalt. I mean, it's just mineral rich. Radiation, radium for plutonium. All of our nuclear submarines are refueled in the northern part of Australia as they go around the world because our treaties with them. Australia is traded on the New York Stock Exchange as a corporate entity. Just so you want to know about that. The people just lost my thought. England went into Australia, genocided up until 1957. They had a bounty on Aborigine people that if you kill them, you got to pay the bounty. Imagine that. England was actually hunting human beings like they do deer and putting a bounty on them. Just like the movie with Tom Selleck. Quigley Down Under. Good movie. The Aborigines were genocided. Then they went ahead and they stole their land and they sold it to the unsuspecting settlers from around the world as they came in as new people. Then as soon as the people bought the land, the government came in and filed bankruptcy on the individual, bankrupting them off the land. Then filed a Title 46, Chapter 781 salvage claim under 2000 Corporation Act under false and misleading statements, filed bankruptcy against the people, and through the bankruptcy court legalized the taking of the land because now they're saying the nothing contract of seizure was filed in bankruptcy, giving nothing value, retitling it back into the crown and then selling it to the next unsuspecting buyer, now as only a trustee and a caretaker, leaving the jurisdiction of the government in charge of the land and moving the Aborigine people off who couldn't read and write and defend themselves. When I showed up, I wrote them a new constitution. I gave them international trade agreements. I gave them the ability in quantum grammar to protect themselves against a world of fiction. So they called me the Spirit Walker because I came in and prosecuted 129 judges and nobody touched me. Anybody else that ever tried something was killed immediately by the government. But the government wouldn't approach me. The government wouldn't touch me. So the Aborigines, my name got shot all the way across Australia in a matter of days as we got somebody here that's special. And that's the reason why when I came to Hawaii, same thing. Somebody special showed up and they made me king because I came with a bird. 1848, a prophecy was made that a white man from America would come to Hawaii and set the Hawaiians free. I wrote the apology bill that Bill Clinton signed and apologized to sealing the Hawaiian Islands. Then proved the entire history of the Hawaiian Islands from the international bankruptcy through World War II, and it was the post office that captured the Hawaiian Islands, not the United States court system. Henceforth, giving the Hawaiians now direction by which to prosecute trespassing. And who paid the docking fees for all the buildings in Hawaii for the past 200 years on a sovereign country? Nobody. It's about $64 trillion in back taxes that the Hawaiian people are owed, which they kind of perked up to. Yeah, wow. So then you take all of that, and then you go down to Australia, you syntax their constitution, null and void. Write a new constitution in quantum grammar, giving the origines original constitution before the English got it, putting them in now control. And then going in and prosecuting the judges where they're running out of the courtroom. They're standing up bowing to me as the chief federal judge of Australia and New Zealand. And the origines are in there watching this. And then having 2 federal attorneys, 2 federal barristers, 2 federal solicitors, and 2 federal, state attorneys, all stand up, all 8 of them, one right after another. We are in peril, danger to move forward against the origine people. As Judge Miller has explained to us as a chief federal judge here in in Australia, in Sydney, Australia, New South Wales, as to how much criminal activity we have done in closed chambers in the back here in the last 8 hours. He can walk the walk, talk the talk, and he explained to us in detail the operations by which we are to be prosecuted as, that we don't exist as a government, as a court, or as a people, that we are trespassers. We hereby vacate our position against this origine who we want to sue. And that's been 4 years now, and he's still a free man. And there's been no activity. And that word went all over Australia. And I've gone to court 129 times. Every time I walk in the courthouse, it's like, bzzz, Miller's in the building. Everybody's running and locking doors. Don't let him in your courtroom. He walks in here, and it's going to be hell to pay. Yeah.
So will you also write that for the Indians?
American Indians got the same thing through their treaties and now have 190 casinos on their properties. And guess what? The white man is losing money and they're buying back their own Indian lands with the white man's money. That's poetic justice. Yes.
You were saying something about the bankruptcy. Don't do bankruptcy.
Don't do bankruptcy. It is.
I have a question.
Don't think of how not to pay your bills. Think of how to make money and be more efficient. Learn how. a paper. I says, we agreed on 8%. He says, well, I'm giving you 10%. I says, I didn't ask anybody for any money. I did my work. That was my contract. That's all I'm contracted for is work. If you guys pick up $1.5 million down the road or $7 million from the federal government and you want to do a gift to me after the fact because you have surplus or you feel you want to give me a gift, that's your business, but I'm not asking you for anything. We had a contract. I fulfilled my contract to you, and that's it. When you got a gift, what is a gift? Okay. Most of you are too young to understand this, but some of you are old enough. Remember the movie I Dream of Jeannie? Huh? You're laughing. You must have watched it. All right. What is a genie? Everybody knows it deals with magic, right? Okay, you have a genie and you have a djinn. A djinn is the grandmaster of genies. He's got all the power. So genie was a program where as a astronaut opened up a bottle and let the genie out. And the genie fell in love. She's laughing. She's seen it. The genie fell in love with Tony and did all these crazy things trying to help him. And every time she used her magic to help him, wound up getting in trouble. And the whole TV show was a comedy. Well, along the way, Jeannie goes ahead and she's going to use magic to go ahead and make Tony fall in love with her. There's one thing about the word love. It has to be free will. And if a genie violates violates the free will of love, loses her powers. So Jeannie went ahead and played her trump card and Tony fell in love. Well, Jeannie's dad shows up to Jen and says, you broke the rules. You got no power. So now she's back to an ordinary woman, living a mortal life, having to learn how to cook and clean and iron and do everything domestically. Well, at the end of the show, the Jen goes ahead and gives Jeannie back her power because she learned her lesson. So then I got to thinking about that. What would any of you do if somebody gave you power to snap your fingers and create things out of thin air? Give you absolute power over all things. What does that mean to you? Will you be responsible for power? Will you be a teacher? Will you acquire wisdom from this here? Or will you go out there and practice mischief? Well, I looked at myself in the mirror one day and I said to myself, will you make a contract with yourself, David, that if you were given the power, absolute power, will you be responsible for that? And I said, yeah, I can do that. But would you do that at the point of death? In other words, if you violate the rules of absolute power, which is the word meek, M-E-E-K, that you will be struck down and you will die without cause. I said, yes, I'll make that contract with you. And what I'm doing is I'm talking to the mirror. So the mirror is a reflection of the opposite. But when the opposite goes through your eye, it's put in your brain as the correctness. A correct image appears in front of your brain. So I made a contract with myself and with God that I will be correct if given the power to be correct, to fix it. And what is syntax? Syntax controls all the contracts on planet Earth. Parse, syntax, grammar. And so 7 years later goes by, and I die on the operating table. And I'm reborn. And my whole personality is different. My 6-year-old daughter walks up to me and says, you don't smell like my daddy. You got green eyes now. You don't look like my daddy. My daddy had hazel eyes. You got bright green eyes. You don't look like my daddy. You don't smell like my daddy. My daughter was estranged from me until she turned 16 and then never talked to me again until she was 28. True story. My other children are very close to me. But the point is, I did acquire the math interface on grammar, giving me power on grammar. Grammar controls all contract, and contract controls all topics on planet Earth, all money, everything. So what happened was I acquired the power over all things in all languages on planet Earth through the math interface of communications. So I made a contract, and I've always been honorable to that contract, and I was reborn again. So what did I get with the power? I get to have clothes, food, shelter, and travel, and have immunity, which I acquired through my diplomatic position of the United Nations as a sovereign, as a federal judge. But I'm always correct. And everybody walks up to me or goes on the internet and say, you're not a federal judge, you're not part of the United States District Court. Well, a district court judge is not a federal judge. He's a district, demon god of the underworld for trickery in a closed area. That's what it means. I don't do demon stuff, anything. I am 100% mathematically correct in everything I do and everything I say on paper. And I am a federal judge on every document I sign, and that document is the court. And when we go into a scenario, we are correct in that court, and that judge is going to come off the bench, and he's going to sign that document, or he's not the judge in the case, and I will be that federal judge in that court in front of that individual, and I will tell him so. And if he thinks he's going to touch me, he's going to have a whole world of hurt come down from all over the world. And he already knows that. That's why they run out of the courtroom. Or they lock the doors. Or I show up in Honolulu, Hawaii last year. And everybody talks about this. I was ordered to go to court and testify. I went to court. And it was announced that all the courts in Hawaii and all the schools were closed because of the high wind alert. They were afraid the school buses were going to be blown over. That court-appointed lawyers, attorneys, judges were going to be blown off the road because of the high wind alert. On that day, you couldn't knock a candle out with the wind. But I went to court with a whole parade of kapunas behind me. We got to the court, and the sheriff was standing going like, court's closed. It's Friday. It's declared a court holiday. There's nothing on the books for that. All the schools are closed too. The whole state of Hawaii is declared a holiday today because of the high wind alert. It's all over the news, broadcasted all over the world.
When you mentioned what is a gift, a number of years ago there was some deal going around called gifting. You pay so much.
It's called Pay It Forward. They made a movie.
And I decided, because they use scripture to kind of smooth it over, and some people almost went to jail for it. I'm not sure. It kind of quieted down all of a sudden. I looked up the word gift in the dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a number of different definitions, but the one I remember is, it said, your request is not my gift.
No contract is a gift, is what it means. In other words, you don't have a contract to give anybody anything, but you look at the value of the situation. It's your own personal judgment to either participate or not participate.
Okay.
In order for evil to flourish, good people must do nothing. If you see a wrong and you intervene and you correct the situation, maybe it requires a financial gift to stop and correct a wrong, to give a person food, money, or hope, to educate an individual with certain points of information. That then becomes a gift. Knowledge is the most important thing on planet Earth. If I take a little slip of paper a half inch long, a half inch wide, and 2 inches long, what's it worth to you? It's a little piece of paper. You just throw it in the garbage. And then I write the 6 winning numbers to the lottery tonight at 8 o'clock, which is worth $300 million. Now what's that little slip of paper worth? It's called points of information. Aflac, paycheck. He knew that if he went back and changed time, the company wouldn't exist to pay him his paycheck. So what did he do? He knew what the 6 winning lottery ticket numbers were going to be when he came back. So he wrote them down and put them away 6 days earlier. So when he got there, he'd have a paycheck of $15 million. Kind of a cute ending to a great story. Point is, information is the most powerful thing in the world. If you study and you become proficient and you acquire the gift of syntax, you will know how to answer the questions and save people's lives and make a difference. I do it all the time. I do it as a parlor trick. Maybe 1 out of every 20 people actually pay me to do my job. The rest of them, you ask me a question, I just pop it off to you, have a tape recorder, and I'll give you all the answers you want as fast as you can. That recorder can record. Because if you try to write stuff down, I'm not going to repeat myself. If you want to get in a conversation with me, you better have a tape recorder running, because you're not going to believe what you hear in the next 5 minutes, because it'll take you a month of research to pull it out of the dictionary. Those that know me, those that have done business with me, know that once you get into bed with me, I take care of you. I answer your questions. I'm on the phone, available from 3 a.m. in the morning, all the way from 7 a.m. in the morning till 3 a.m. in the morning. 20 hours a day I'm there available, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. How many judges do you know you can call at 2 a.m. in the morning? They're just going to answer the phone and give you an answer to a problem. I'm there. I do it all the time. But only the people that are supposed to be there and talk to me get through on the phone. Look at all the billions of people I have on my website, and yet only the people that are supposed to call me with important questions that are under contract with me are the ones that get through. Everybody else doesn't know how to do it. Yes, question? Oh. Oh yeah, I'll be on Skype and 2 phones at the same time while I'm day trading and syntaxing a lawsuit. It's called multitasking. I can use my right brain, mathematics, doing numbers and syntaxing papers at doing 300 words, about 30 minutes, so about 600 words an hour. I'll do syntaxing while watching a movie.
Did you say you fast forward the movie?
Well, yeah, other movies, if I've seen a movie once, like Gone with the Wind, I'll just put it on high speed and watch a 3.5-hour movie in 6 minutes. Or for entertainment, I'll walk through a video store and use 1 second on each title and go like, I know all the plots, I know all the actors, I know the whole thing, and bang, 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 watch 20,000 movies an hour just by reviewing my mind as to what I've seen in my life at 63 years. So I was 18 years old before I had my first TV set. So I grew up with a crystal radio that I built myself. I had to learn how to read books. I used a library and library card catalogs. I lived in a library 40 hours a week, 7 days a week. And I did that from the age of 8 to 18. So I was an information junkie, studied to be a doctor at the age of 12, and at 18 I put it all away and became a welder. Metallurgy, engineering, heat treating, all the things that build the world, because I was a builder. Built my own homes, built my own car, built my own boats. Built 3 cars, as a matter of fact, 3 Corvettes. I drive the only Lexan plastic bulletproof Corvette in the United States. Does 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, weighs 2,400 pounds, and is 380 horsepower. It'll blow anything off the line outside of a Cobra, which goes 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. But if I want to put a turbocharger on it, I could probably get it down to 3 seconds without too much trouble. I built one with lock positive traction. Took the universal apart and welded it together with super missile weld so that both tires sped at the same time. And that was a quick little machine. That only weighed 2,200 pounds at 380 horsepower. That was kind of dangerous, so I got rid of it. So sold to a guy that does stock car racing. Yeah.
You said you're built like you're Hiram William. Do you have his phone number and address?
They're on the forms I give you. So, yes.
There was a gentleman here earlier that wanted me to ask you why, or if your patent would supersede the U.S. patent, and why.
Hawaii doesn't have any patents with the United States government. Is that what you're asking?
Well, he just wanted to know. He wanted it to be on the video so when you come back and watch
The United States government never had the correct parse syntax grammar to invade the Hawaiian Islands. Pearl Harbor was gifted in 1848 to the United States Postal Service by King Kamehameha I. That was it. Everything else in 1893 was an issue of coal, C-O-A-L. The Germans, the French, and the Portuguese all planned to take over the Hawaiian Islands 6 months after the takeover of the United States taking over Hawaii. They just beat them to the punch because the population stood by 1893 at probably 60,000 Hawaiians versus 3 million invaders back then. So, questions?
If you become president, will you get the peace treaty signed between Israel and the Palestinians?
Yes, Ron, I told you a story about Helm. That already was signed way back about 7 years ago. That's why there hasn't been any commotion there. They both are familiar.
That was already signed.
Yeah, that was already done in quantum 6-7 years ago. Even though the people are still making noise, those are satellite groups, but the people who originally signed that have not been fighting with each other because of the words. But then there's been the people who were involved with the original treaties are senior citizens, bad health, some have died. So the new people coming in are not familiar with the new terminologies, and so therefore they're drifting back into fiction, whereas they had quantum before. And if you don't take time to study, you're not going to be proficient. So every generation, just like ambassadors at the UN are traded off every two years. They were on a 6-year ambassadorship, and every 2 years, 1/3 of all the ambassadors in the UN are changed out. So from the time I got my ambassadorship in 1999, under sovereignty, I'm still hold that position as because there's only 2 of us, Russell and I. All the rest of the people in fiction are changed out, but I have a lifetime appointment as a director of a sovereign country called Quantum Grammar. So that's where that stands. Yes?
There are some of us without birth certificates and Social Security numbers. Is there a certain way to interact with the world? Or?
Well, if you don't have a Social Security number, it's pretty tough to get a driver's license or a passport. And because the world of fiction, you can travel anywhere you want, except the corporation of airlines, trains, buses, and automobiles are all controlled by Social Security. In other words, you have to have that number to move between point A and point B. As long as you stand still, nobody's going to bother you. It's when you want to go across state lines or federal, international lines, they want to have those points of information. Otherwise, I would recommend you send your identity, do a claim it to life, mail it to yourself, registered mail. That way you've got a quantum registered mail with the post office. Use that as your identity to go and mail yourself anywhere you want to go, registered mail. And then send yourself, put a post-it like I did Russell. My business partner, Russell Gould, is the only person in the history of the post office to be mailed from the United States out of Pennsylvania through Montreal, Canada, into Paris, France, and back to the United States, to Philadelphia, registered mail, by me as the postmaster, transporting him as registered mail to there and back in quantum language. They had no remedy for quantum language. Once we completed that task, all the post offices worldwide passed a law that said you must have 3 forms of identity: a ticket, 2 forms of state ID, which is a passport and driver's license, and a birth certificate certifying your location. Changed all the laws on the planet. He tried to do it a second time. It was not successful. The U.S. Department of Immigration and Customs said, yes, you can go. We have no way to stop you. But the insurance company that controlled the United Airlines flight says, no, we will not insure you to get on our plane. You're not a dead person. Only dead people can fly on our airplane. In case it crashes, there's no liability. You must be a nom de guerre dead person on our plane. That's why all plane crashes never have survivors. Because they don't want people surviving. Otherwise, they'd sue you out of existence. For public, were secrets. And a lot of stuff was lost languages. Well, because of our syntaxing capacity, we were able to break the codes on these and put all the correct language in, syntaxing these. We had cardinals and bishops for 3 days follow us around as we told them all the secrets. After that exercise was done, we then wrote an international bank treaty for Cardinal Sedana, and we were awarded Keymasters as the first persons to ever write a quantum treaty with the Vatican. When we came back, we drove 2,000 miles through Europe. We then went from there to Bern, Switzerland, and met with the Universal Postal Union. From there, we went to Zurich and met with the German Bank of Germany. And from there, we went back to Paris. I have a passport, so I was allowed to fly out. But Russell was mailed there, registered mail. So the Postmaster General of the Universal Postal Union in Bern, Switzerland, and the Postmaster General for the United States in Europe both had to vouch for Russell. But that still wasn't enough to get him through security. They wanted a passport. When the head of the Charles de Gaulle Airport heard that we were there as key masters, he came down to interview us. The man who was in charge of the Charles de Gaulle Airport is the great-great-great-grandson of the Joan of Arc, who was a keymaster with the Vatican. Going all the way back, he's a direct descendant. And when he heard that there was 2 keymasters from the Vatican at his airport, he shut down the airport, held 300 people on a DC-10 for 3.5 hours as he interviewed us for 3 hours, and did syntaxing exercises with us for 3 hours about Vatican secrets using a Bible. After which time he gave us red carpet VIP treatment through security onto the plane. We flew back and were accepted. We had to be debriefed by the post office when we landed in Philadelphia, but everything went smooth. Got him there, got him back. All postmasters in the world were notified that Russell was mailed to Europe and back registered mail successfully. As we're only person to ever do that. And to this day, the post office still tells tales of the stunts that we uphold and the treaties we have. I am also a muster master for the Pentagon with the Secretary of, and so is Russell, with the Secretary of Defense. Yes?
Why are the secrets of the Vatican so secret?
Well, first off, you don't have Manly Hall's Secret of All Ages. There are only 5 copies on the planet. Number 2, you don't have a deluxe copy, which have been syntaxed by me. There's only one in existence, and I own it. So therefore, the secrets that exist are so complex. If you started reading right now on a 6-page book that's 6,000 pages long, this wide and this tall and this thick, it would take you several years to get through that. And you would also have a syntax background to understand what it says. Russell and I both do. And we concur on different things. I'm 25 years older than Russell, by the way. Go ahead.
Is there a book of Enoch?
Enoch. I know what Enoch means, yes. But no, there's not a book of Enoch. It's a tale about a UFO. That's what Enoch means. It's a UFO tale. They made a movie called Enoch, if you want to watch it. Yes?
Do you have with you claim of the life, like a claim of the life, birth, whatever?
Yeah, it's on page 2.
I would like to see one that's done.
Right there, page 3 in the book. There's also the same ones on the internet. Just fill it out, put your picture on it, have your people autograph and fingerprint it, and you're done. It's called a claim of the life. Claim of the live life. What it means is that you have knowledge of what a prepositional phrase is, how to certify what a fact is. You've identified yourself, your mother, your father, and 2 other people with claims of the life have identified you to be a fact. That's all it means. You don't file a claim of life written with the correct parsé syntax grammar with the recorder's office or with the fiction government. Why would you file a fact with a fiction? It's an oxymoron. It's only for you to use. If you want to attach it to a federal lawsuit, and if you want to go to The Hague and file a claim of the life, take a lawsuit into The Hague, showing that I'm a live person who's been violated under a genocide or apartheid situation, then they would accept your paperwork. They will not accept any paperwork from an individual who does not have a claim of the life. People, you cannot file lawsuits at The Hague. The Hague is a branch of the United Nations. You must be a United Nations member who has paid your dues of $1.6 million a year, and you must be a country. Private citizens are not allowed to bring cases. The Blood Diamond case took 14 years to get to court. 235,000 people died under the Blood Diamond Civil War. And that's why the Blood Diamond movie was made. For those that haven't seen it, yeah. A break? 7:30. We're just for an hour? Oh. We're almost done. That's all. We're just answering some questions, and you guys can get out of here. Because I'm the guy standing up here for 8 hours. Yes?
There's a Republic, and they claim they filed a case.
Tim Turner's under arrest. He was arrested a couple days ago, by the way. He's in jail right now.
Really?
Yes, really. Tim Turner, means no public. A no public document written in adverb verb is nonsense. So he's trying to promote a negative condition of state in the world of quantum. Therefore, the U.S. Attorney's Office, or the federal attorneys, are now using my quantum technology to arrest any organization in fiction anywhere in the United States that would take money or mislead American citizens. They're going to shut down the whole thing. In May 1993, I went on the radio to do my first quantum radio show. In 6 weeks, 2,800 organizations in the United States were put out of business. There was only 10 organizations left standing. Today, there's only, I don't know, maybe less than a dozen that actually are still in existence. Otherwise, my technology has completely rolled across the planet, and anybody attempting to start anything up, do anything with IRS, or anything, redemption, straw man, UCC, acceptance for value, all nonsense, all being arrested under false and misleading statements. So this is the only program that's replacing the entire planet. Question?
Fred and Nina Gutierrez.
What?
Fred and Nina Gutierrez. What does that mean to you?
Fred and Anita.
Nina.
Fred and
Going around
Nina?
the countryside doing seminars.
Set off debt, doctor.
Set off debt.
They'll probably be arrested shortly for false and misleading statements. I'm serious. I don't know anything about them, but if you show me, if you got a website, something I can look at, a piece of paper that they've written, if it ain't in quantum, or if it isn't in quantum, I should say, it'll be nixed like that.
You mentioned also the UCC.
It's copyrighted by England. It's private property.
Right. So how does the UCC affect us over here in the United States? It doesn't, or isn't it still?
Lawyers and attorneys work in a foreign vessel in dry dock. The foreign vessel in dry dock of the courthouse is the same in all 250 countries using the same UCC, only in the courthouse, only by judges and attorneys and lawyers. It does not apply to the civilian population anywhere on the planet.
So using UCC 1-308?
No, it's nonsense. It's all written in adverb. Verb means nothing. Right. Anytime you look up all the words that have a prefix or a suffix, they are in void, a violation of now time. If you're not in now time and you're not correct mathematically, you're not correct, period. Yes?
I was just going to ask, as we go along and this technology gets revealed, we'll probably be told these secrets that have been held back for thousands and thousands of years.
Well, I have 50 stars on my flag dealing with the 50 tricks and traps and procedures of correct grammar. They don't represent conditions of the states. They represent the conditions of operations. And so it's the operations that I've been bringing out and teaching to the people. And every time the government goes out and they cook up a brand new plan to think they're going to trump me, I just go ahead and pull another trump card out of my thing and I trump them. I've shut the United States federal government down 23 times, the entire government, courthouses, legislation, the Senate, everybody. So I'm a world icon. The whole world knows my name. I'm probably bigger than, when I went to Australia, the Immigration and Customs says, you're bigger than the president of Australia. You got like 4 times more people on your website than he does. He says, "Who are you and what are you doing in our country?" And so I pulled out all my gambling cards and I says, "I'm here to gamble. I'm in your Texas Hold'em tournaments." And I pulled out my cash and I says, "I have the cash to buy into the tournament. And I like to gamble." Just part of my entertainment. I know adrenaline, I mean, it's got to have something to give me a little kind of buzz. Doing it to judges isn't buzzing me. Yeah.
On one set of videos, I remember you mentioning hanging on a cliff.
Yes, that was at Devil's Lake, Wisconsin. In other words, I'm a rock climber. I've climbed Devil's Tower already in Wyoming. That's a 1,200-foot face. It's as smooth as this wall here, with little tiny cracks going all the way up to the top. And get up before sun up, and you start climbing up that thing, and you get up to the top, sign your name, and you come back down on the backside, which is kind of easy. Or you rappel down the face. But I was climbing on Devil's Lake. It was 95 degrees out. I was on a cliff about 102 feet tall at Red Rock. And it's a smooth face. It's an inverted climb, which means you hang a rope off the top, it hangs 6 feet off the bottom, so you're actually negative climbing all the way up. You slip, you fall, you got your rope. Well, I was 10 feet from the top, and where my carabiner was tied off was 10 feet below from the guy who put it up on top. He had climbed down, but I was out of location. I went up the wrong crack. So here I am in a wrong location, and I had to disconnect. So now I'm on a 90-foot cliff after an hour climb, 10 feet from the top, and it's all smooth. All I got is a 3-inch crack in front of me. So I had to put my fist inside the crack and tighten it so hard that I could do a one-arm pull-up and do that hand over hand for 10 feet to get over the top. Otherwise, fall to my death. There was no way up, no way down except to go over the top. The rock doesn't care if you die. So you're there, and you have one responsibility. You either put away your pain, you put away your stupidity, and you tough it out. You get over the top. You pull yourself out of the situation. And when you get done with that, and you survive, everything else is nonsense.
I don't believe that.
And that's what it means to do something. Now, I've taught all my children, all 6 of them are rock climbers. My son and my daughter used to be teachers of rock climbing at Devil's Lake, Wisconsin. My son, Mark, he was climbing one day, and he had been instructing for 3 years. And we were up at Red Rock, and he had tied all the ropes off. I mean, he had done everything. And he was so busy doing what he was doing, he didn't pay attention. Put his carabiner on all nice, his harness, tied his knots off, and then he flew his foot out backwards to rappel down. Except the pile of rope was still 10 feet in front of him. Around the base of the tree, sitting there in one neat pile, and I was about 12 feet away, and I was tying my shoe, and I looked at him, and I looked at the rope as he swung his foot out, and he was already past the point of return, which means he was going to fall 90 feet to his death. And from a squat position, I sprung like a frog and caught the end of the rope as he hit a 45-degree taut. He pulled himself back on and sat there and shook and cried for 20 minutes, realizing that he had just died and got his life back. And me, I caught that rope with both hands, and you could see the marks in my hands from squeezing. There are relevance in time, just like me dropping the bullet and avoiding things. There are some things that aren't supposed to happen. There are some things that have to happen. And after that, he was the safest climber, does a triple everything. Nobody touches a rope that he touches. He doesn't trust anybody or anything, but he is triple secure at everything he does now. At 18, he's now 38 years old, 20 years later. 8 years ago, he caught the edge of his foot on a roofing nail and fell 12 feet onto concrete off a roof. Crushed his left foot, which is now titanium, and crushed his left wrist, which has pins in it. And so he still roofs, but he wears a harness when he's up on the roof. And he's super, super careful. That was the second time he was careless. So he pays very close attention now, but he's in a lot of pain. The bones change, titanium doesn't. So, any questions? Yes?
Oaths of office, if they're upholding an oath to the Constitution, which is not the Constitution, but you're saying just to the state, is that what you said?
All right, I'll explain what that means. The judge says, I swear to support the Constitution of the United States. Correct?
Correct.
What does the word United States mean? United means no citizen, condition of state. He supports the Constitution of the piece of paper that is in front of him between two or more people. As there are two people that are nom de guerre names on a piece of paper. That piece of paper, which is the lawsuit, yours is traffic, his is divorce, yours is speeding. Doesn't matter what you're there for. Misconduct. Everybody's in court for something. You want to collect rents. The point is, every piece of paper in court is a different constitution of two or more people between him and the person in front of them asking for something. That's what it means. The word constitution means contract.
So
Has nothing to do with Washington.
So how can, for example, the oath that I showed you of the police officer, how can I use that to my advantage to avoid something that's going on?
Oh, real simple. Mr. Police Officer, will you please take the witness stand? And he takes the witness stand. You take the oath of office and you hold it up. Is this your oath of office? Yes, it is. Did you write that? And he's going to say, no, that was presented to me. Do you know what the word syntax means? He's going to go, well, no, I don't. I says, you signed a document, but you don't know what grammar means. You know what the word grammar means? Do you know what the word parse means? Do you know what the word syntax means? If he answers yes to all three of those, then you're saying then you understand how to syntax this document, correct? He's going to say, no, I don't. So you don't know what you're signing, which means you don't have an oath of office with knowledge. It says you're saying one thing here, but you're just testified because you don't know what you're doing. Your Honor, this man has just identified the fact that he doesn't have an oath of office. Now let's say I says, did you go to college? And yes, I did. I went 4 years of criminology, took college in criminology. Did you study English in college? Yes, I did. Did you study English in high school? Yes, I did. All right, do you know what the word syntax means? Yes, I do. You understand what the word grammar means? Yes, I do. You understand what parse means? It's a French word. If you don't, I'll explain it means parts of a word. Okay, that's fair. You can give him a hint. So now you understand parse, syntax, grammar. Is that correct? He goes, yes, it is. Did you write this? You're going to say, well, it's an oath that I signed. Again, do you understand what it means? He's going to say, well, yes, I do. Then if you understand what this means, did you modify your facts with adverbs and adjectives? Did you change the meaning of the syntax on this document by putting adverbs and adjectives in front of the facts? What's he going to say? Is that your autograph? Yes.
He's going to have to say yes.
He's going to have to say yes. He understands that he modified. Under false and misleading statements and fictitious conveyance of language and deprivation of rights under coloring of law, you just confessed to 3 felonies, and you signed it. Now, while engaged in criminal activity under Title 42, 1988, states responsible for all fees in this case. Your Honor, this man asked me for $525 fine here. The district attorney is a co-conspiracy with this here, as the two of them work together to ask me for a $525 fine. I'm invoking the Clayton Act for a 4 times damages. I want to check for $2,200 right now. This man just committed treason in front of me. And the state pays all fees. Now you cut me a check because I have a criminal confession by a police officer.
Can you take that a step further?
If the DA wants to prosecute, yes, but then the DA was party to it, so therefore it's a co-conspiracy. So he's guilty of 22 and he's guilty of 22. And the state's going to go, I'm going to vacate this case right now because I ain't paying no bills.
So we could do the same thing with the attorneys, though.
Exactly, which says nothing.
The judges?
And judges. Well, not the judges, on the other hand, are not in the courtroom. They're on a different plane. You know, when I went through a divorce, the lawyer asked me for $1,700 worth of attorney fees for fighting for my children. He says, hey, Mr. Attorney, take the witness stand. Oh, I don't have to take the witness stand. Client-attorney privileges. So I didn't care about your client. I didn't ask you a question for that. I said, take the witness stand. You asked me for money. That's maritime law of commerce. You have to testify under maritime law of commerce. Judge Wasilewski goes, he's right. It's maritime law of commerce. You asked him for money. You've got to take the witness stand and testify. Well, his 8 business partners that belonged to his law firm all were sitting in the courtroom, all in a nice row next to each other to watch him take down David Miller and make him pay a fine, make him pay attorney fees. I asked him the same questions. Did you go to law school? How long have you been a lawyer? And his answer to each one of them, do I have to answer that, Judge? And the judge says, of course you do. If you're not a member of the bar, you're going to get kicked out of here. If you didn't go to law school, you're an imposter. Do you understand syntax? He goes, yes. Do you understand grammar? Yes. Is this your autograph? Yes. Did you write this document? Yes. Did you ask me for money? Yes. Did you modify your facts? Not your nouns, because they're no-nos. Did you modify your facts with adverbs and adjectives? Well, yes, I did. And what did they do? They modified. Therefore, you changed. And because you intentionally changed, is there any closure on this document for false, misleading information, for modification of the facts into verbs? Well, no. Well, by your own confession, you modified grammar under false, misleading statements, fictitious conveyance of grammar, and deprivation of rights under color of law. And you tried to extort money from me under mail fraud, Title 18, Section 1341. That's $1 million fine and 30 years in prison. You feel lucky today? Judge goes, can he do that to me? Wasilewski is laughing. He had to stop himself from laughing. He was laughing so hard when I downloaded on him. He says, he's already done it to you. You just confessed the 4 felonies. You will write him a check right now for $6,400 or I'm going to put you in prison. And he did. Pulled out his checkbook and his boss stands up and yells across the courtroom, you're fired. I'm not paying that bill. And ever since that day, there has never been an attorney take the witness stand in my presence. They won't even let me in the courtroom.
You said maritime law. Isn't maritime law connected with the UCC at all?
No. Aren't you a vessel in a sea of space called Earth? That's maritime. Earth is a vessel in the sea of space, outer space. All things are maritime.
And isn't that contract?
All contract law, right. The contract better be correct or you're going to get nailed for false, misleading information.
But UCC is contract also.
UCC is copyrighted. It's not allowed to be used unless you're under contract in a foreign venue. Foreign venue would be a spaceship landed on planet Earth from another planet. Declared the fact that they are a foreign spaceship in dry dock under law of the flag, moi, which is fiction, in advertising fiction. Therefore, when you walk in there with no paperwork, you've trespassed on a foreign vessel and nothing you say matters because you're not going to talk to them in correct parse, syntax, grammar. And they don't have to listen to you because all 8 billion people are foreign to each other, speak Babel, and that's the truth of it all, folks. The only thing that matters is what you write on paper with a stamp, a flag, and the correct mathematical grammar, and you take responsibility for every word, your laws, rules, regulations, and codes on that paper. That your punctuation is in the correct place. Even if you put something, claimant's knowledge, I just took away the hyphen. Now I just wrote 413412134. This is a 3. No. 121213412 comma 22 and 4 no. 1, 1, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, period. So that would be a 4. No, that would be a 1, 2. But because of the period, because it's abbreviated, then all of these would become 4s. And then that would become a 4 also. 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2. Just have all the answers. Judge says, no, all the facts. Judge says, he has all the facts. Judge says, oh, you do? He says, well, how is that you have all the facts? He says, you can ask me anything you want. He says, I'm prepared for traffic court today. Judge says, well, actually, I don't have time for this today. He says, so we're going to continue this for 30 days. He says, in 30 days, you will come back into this courtroom with all the facts, and you will present your argument, as I'll give you a half a day before this court. So the man walks out and he realizes that. And then the judge, before he walks out of the courtroom, says, I want all the facts from all over the world about what you know about your traffic citation. He goes, well, that's a really big order, Your Honor. He says, you said the word all. So you said you have all the facts. I want all the facts or I'm going to arrest you for perjury and you're going to spend 30 days in my jail. So he calls me up and says, Dave, he says, I really stuck my foot in my mouth. What do I do? He says, practice the handstanding. He says, what do you mean practice handstanding? I says, the judge told me to bring all the facts in the court. I says, yeah, practice your handstanding capacity. So he got to be really good. Run around the house all day long on his hands, doing handstands. Got his balance all tricked up. So he calls him back the day before court and he says, all right, David. He says, I practiced my handstanding. I can do a handstand for 20 minutes, walk all over the place. He says, I'm really good at it. Now you're going to tell me the rest of the story as to why I had to do handstands for 30 days? I says, of course. So then he goes into court, walks up in front of the judge. The judge says, I'm here with all the facts, Your Honor. The judge goes, well, I don't see any paperwork. He says, you better show me all the facts right now. So he pops a handstand. He says, my feet are dangling in a sea of space and I brought Earth to the courtroom today. I brought all the facts on planet Earth. As my feet are now in a sea of space. After the courtroom got done laughing, the judge says, that was a trick question, and yes, that's a correct answer. You're free to go. You see, sometimes it isn't about syntax or it's about knowing where to look. So everyone in this room has a really unique gift right now. I'll tell you another little story that is relevant to the gift before I answer the question. Man walks up, Ford, president of Ford Motors, Mr. Ford himself, 1952, holds his annual shareholders meeting. And people come from all over the United States for all the Ford dealers. And Mr. Ford is amongst all of his executives, and he's having a conversation. And finally, his young executive walks up, 31 years old, graduate, cocky little guy, and he walks up to Mr. Ford and says, Mr. Ford, I understand you can answer all questions. He says, yes, I can. He says, okay, I got a question for you. So he asked the question in front of all the people there. Give me a phone. I want the answer to this question. You got 15 seconds. Calls his think tank. 15 seconds later comes back and he says, here's the answer to your question. And answers it. He says, is that the correct answer? He says, yes, it is. He says, you can't answer all the questions. He says, you got to call somebody else. He says, is that the right answer? And the man says, yeah, that's the right answer. He says, I know where to look. And that's why I know I can answer your question. By the way, you're fired. For being a wise guy. Okay, what did I say that for? I said that because all of you here have a now have access to me. So therefore, if somebody presents you with a scenario, an argument, a document, anything, trick question, craziness, no matter what you think it is, say, hey, I got Dave's number. Call Dave. Ask me the question. Make sure you got a tape recorder. I will give you the answer. And you won't have to wait, week or so for me to research it. I will give you the answer while you're on the phone immediately. I haven't been defeated in 100,000 questions at 2,500 seminars, so you guys just cook up your best things. I hope I've answered everyone's questions here today and showed you the necessary points of information that are necessary. Yes?
I got another question. With all these people that know about you and have your phone number from being on the website, all your students all over the world, how can you have time to answer? I think you'd be getting 2,000 calls a minute.
I get 200 emails a day. I hope everybody sends me by email because you can write things out and you get to think about things when you write them out. And so it gives me an opportunity then to answer then when I'm not on the phone, but between the phones and the emails and the lawsuit writing and my day trading and research, I do have a full mental capacity. I don't watch television because that's just... If I'm going to syntax documents or actually going to sit there and write, I'll watch TV because it gets boring when you're doing numbers at 300 words every half hour. So I watch TV because it's all my right brain does the work while my left brain is entertained watching. Or if I'm talking to you on a phone, I'll be syntaxing at the same time. But I'm always syntaxing. It's just automatic after 12 years, and I don't even think about it.
My question is, how do you have time to answer all these questions?
I do. I take care of everybody, and I get it all out in record time. Right. People that are doing nonsense don't get through to me. People that are actually legitimate, have a legitimate question for a legitimate reason, and have an emergency do get through to me, and I answer your questions. New people are always going like, you answered your phone. He says, I see how many people you got on your website. The numbers are posted. He goes, how can you possibly get through to me? Well, everybody gets through to me. Since I've been standing here, I've had only 8 phone calls. Kind of disappointed. No emergencies. I know everybody's phone number and what they want to call you about. Where's my form? How do I fill it out? Did I do it right? Same thing, yes.
You got that passion up there, but you didn't show us how that changes. You showed us how it changed too, but not from what.
Oh, this was a compound noun. All my writings have underline on compound nouns. But when you drop this becomes, anytime you have 2 facts, a claimant is a fact, knowledge is a fact. When you put a fact in front of a fact, this becomes an adjective, making this into a pronoun. Except the is an adverb. The only word that the adverb can attach to would be another adverb, but knowledge of becomes a pronoun because it's been modified by 2 adjectives. The first word in a sentence, the authority always runs backwards. And the word and here is a conjunction. If I put a full colon after this, I would break it, and this would become a real fact now. But without it, this becomes a pronoun. The pronoun has to be connected by an adverb. The adverb has to connect, and all it does are adverbs. Now making this into a verb, but because there's punctuation here, this automatically becomes an independent pronoun. And these are all pronouns, pronoun, and this then becomes an adverb, making court to be an adjective of the word with, which now becomes a pronoun again. It's not a fact, so it's a nothing, because it's been modified. Here's another one for you. We're at the University of Atlanta, Georgia. 3 PhDs in grammar are in the audience. And I'm about 3 hours into the seminar, and I write this little sentence up there. The is for the da. And they're going like, lady stands up and goes, well, that makes a lot of sense. He says, yeah, but what does it say? Doesn't mean anything to anybody in this room. Why don't we syntax it? Here's a prepositional phrase. Can you put a verb in front of a pronoun? Or, a preposition. Yes, you can put a verb in front of a preposition. Can you put an adverb in front of a verb? Well, the answer is yes. Can you put an article in front of an adverb? The answer is no. So the only solution here is the adverb modifies the verb, which is connected to the adverb, which modifies the verb, which connected to the adverb, which modifies the verb. So I use the as an adverb and a verb. Or it's a 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2. That's also correct. Because there's no prepositional phrase in front of for the. And as the word for becomes a pronoun, the is now an adverb, connects and then modifies the adjective is, which modifies the pronoun for, which is connected to the adverb the, which modifies the verb the. Depends on what the volition of the writing is. I'm going to read this out loud. Now, everyone in this room thinks in music. You have music in your brains. You've been brainwashed to understand music. Lawyers write in music. 3, 4, 3, 4, 4, 1, 3, 3, 4, 4, 0, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 3, 4, 1, 3, 3, 4, 1, 3, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 3, 3, 4, 1, 3, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 3, 3, 4, 1, 3, 3, 4, 1, 2. You see a pattern here? You're either doing a two-step, a quick step, a waltz, country two-step, rock and roll. And this is the pattern that the brain goes through. So you write with patterns, you read with patterns. And when you start getting into numbers, you see the patterns. Here the guy is using, there's a quick step, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. A judge would say, this is the way I want it. An attorney who doesn't know what a judge knows is going to go 4, 1, 3, 4, 4, 1, 2. What is my exercise? I use the as a verb. I use the as an adverb. I use the as a pronoun. 3 different syntax identities. You don't believe me? Pull the dictionary out and look up the word the. It's used as an adjective, an adverb, a pronoun, a preposition, an article, and a noun. And if I want to do it a different way, I could do a 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4. That's also legal. So now I used it as a pronoun, an adjective, an adverb, and a verb. 4 different identities. And all 3 of those are correct. Now, how would I make a determination as to why this is correct? I would look at all the rest of the thinking of the person, the other paragraph around it, and see which one of these patterns have been duplicated before. And that would tell me what his volition was when he wrote this part. If one attorney writes continuously in a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 and hits this pattern, I'm going to say this is his volition. If the next attorney writes this pattern and it's unbroken throughout the document, I'm going to say this belongs to his pattern. This might be Harvard, this might be Yale, this might be Princeton. Each law school teaches different patterns. So you got to know where the music came from. And when you see the music, you know what your thinking capacity is, and you're going to say, oh, Benjamin Franklin wrote this in the Declaration of Independence. But then he went ahead and he helped Thomas Jefferson write the Constitution of the United States of America. But then there was a few other little individuals that got their fingers in the pie. So he wasn't the only guilty party up there. Yes?
Do you recommend sending your kids to college? Did your kids go to college?
Well, we're only talking about English here right now. If you want to study electronics, mechanics, car repair, motor engines, technical schools, yes, there's nothing wrong. Remember, what is the law of the mafia? You keep your friends close. You keep your enemies closer. Don't forget, who is the enemy? The fiction is the enemy. Smith is going to come after you as Zion. The machine, which is government, is going to try and control you through videotapes, mechanics, automobiles, houses, contracts. So you got two enemies in the world. One is a machine, the other one is a virus. So you have to exist and know who the enemy is. You have to be proficient to understand how the enemy thinks, how the enemy works. But you also have to know what the facts are and how to be proficient in the fact. And by doing so, you can protect yourself and your family and teach it on to other people. You know what the world of syntax pays an hour? It's a $1,000 an hour paycheck. When the world switches gears, they're going to need every document, every topic in the yellow pages rewritten in quantum language. It's a $1,000 an hour paycheck if you can write contracts for what is a refrigeration contract, what is a law contract, what is a real estate contract, what is a bank contract, what is a mortgage contract. How much do you think Bank of America will pay you to write a mortgage contract in quantum grammar compared to the 15-page one of nonsense you now possess? I can take that document and probably, that's 6,000 words. Let's see, 18 and 8, 20, 30, probably about 44 to 46 hours I could have an entire 5,000 word document written in quantum grammar to cover all the topics there, all the scenarios of weather, pesticides, pollution, contracts, and do it in quantum. At which time the banks would then pay a very nice paycheck because how much money is carried in mortgages in the United States? Anybody know that number? Yes, it's trillions. It's a $60 trillion is carried in mortgage in the United States. So therefore, what would be your paycheck? To just know how to write a 15-page quantum document. For Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, Chase, Wachovia, J.C. Morgan. Do the math. You got 38 major banks. They're all going to want mortgages. Learn how to do syntax, one contract, you're financially independent. There is no substitute for knowledge. The only security you have in life is your own daily capacity to earn. Earn doesn't mean money. Earn means respect, love, ability to communicate with other people about anything. And as you go through life, you have to continually beat your own record every day. That means you will learn and improve yourself every day and be more than you were the day before. Don't cry about the fact that you're in debt. Don't cry about the fact that you can't pay your bills. I worked 2 full-time jobs since I was 12 years old. I was financially I was emancipated at the age of 12 with a paper route of 147 customers in 1961. I had that for 2 years. I made $47 a week as a 12-year-old. My father made $60 a week to support 6 children. I had to turn over my entire paycheck to support my family, my brothers and sisters. At the age of 14, I worked for Sears and Roebuck at 6% commission. I took home $400 a week as a 14-year-old kid. You're not allowed to work in the state of Wisconsin under the age of 16. I had a work permit from the Milwaukee Journal as a paper boy. Nobody bothered to look at my age. They just saw I had a work permit, so they put me to work. I wasn't allowed to be in the distributive education clubs of America where you go to school for 4 hours in the morning and you work from 1 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night at Sears and Roebuck until you were 16. I was only 14-year-old in the whole state of Wisconsin. It was going to school in the morning and working at Sears and Roebuck for 2 years. And on my 16th birthday, they threw a birthday party for me, only to discover that, hey, you've been working here for 2 years underage. But you're the best salesman we have, and you make $2,500 a week for the store, so keep your mouth shut. Money talks. So, and then when I joined the Air Force from 68 to 74, worked at A.O. Smith as a tool and die welder. But as a tool and die welder, I had technology and metallurgy secrets that superseded the government, the company's ability. At school, because of what I learned in metallurgy working for A.O. Smith, which had all kinds of pioneering technology that wasn't made public because it was proprietary copyrights. So when I went to school and studied metallurgy, I had secrets. I even had my own lab at home, so I could experiment with things. But I had mathematics and physics under the belt as well. And when I understood coefficient of expansions of metallurgy, I could cross-reference coefficients. Once all the coefficient formulas were cross-referenced, I then could do grafting. And wherever the dots crossed on the graphs were stable molecules. So then one day, Bud Hahn, who was the senior welding instructor, worked for the nuclear power plants at Point Beach in Wisconsin, and worked on the nuclear reactors as being a state-certified heliarc welder, or TIG welder. And he could do everything X-ray. Makes the statement, you cannot weld aluminum and steel together. And I'm going, yes, you can. He says, no, you can't. Never been done. Can't do it. I can do it. He says, that's impossible. He says, I got my own lab. I can do it. I says, I'll bet you your teaching license that I can do it, and I get your teaching permit. I already had 4 years of college under the belt. So he says, I'll take that bet. I'm retiring. I'm 65 years old. So all the welding instructors, metallurgists, engineers at Milwaukee Area Technical College and 150 students were all brought into the weld lab. They set up benches, bleacher benches, so everybody could see. And he gave me a half-inch plate of aluminum and a half-inch plate of steel and a heliarc welder. I set it up for argon and 2% oxygen. Oxygen stabilizes the carbon molecule. And I then preheated the steel to 702 degrees and the aluminum to 702 degrees. And I welded it together, and he beat it with a sledgehammer, and it wouldn't break apart. He says, there's no application for a 702-degree weld of steel and aluminum together. I says, that's not my contract. My contract is that I can weld steel and aluminum together, and you can't break it apart with a sledgehammer, and I can weld it together. That's my contract. And he goes, everyone in the room, that was Mr. Miller's contract. And he welded it, and you beat it with a sledgehammer, and you bent it, and it didn't break. But he maintained 702 degrees Fahrenheit at all times. When he hit 706 or 695, bink, broke apart. Coefficient of expansion, 6.3 versus 12.6. Molecules separated, fell apart. Didn't even have to touch it. But at 702 degrees, the molecules are stable. I knew where to look. And no one else ever, and I got my teaching permit. And I taught college for 3 years full time. During the day, and I worked full time at night at A.O. Smith as a tool and die welder. What I'm point of making here is, if you have knowledge, knowledge is control, and control, you can do what you want. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, if you go through life and you have questions about syntax or about chemistry or about physics or about medicine, just about anything, and you don't know what to do, I have a cure for cancer. I can cure any cancer you have. I don't care who you are. I can cure your arthritis in 48 hours. No problem. High blood pressure, eat an ounce of popcorn every day. There's a little tiny molecule in popcorn that will cure your high blood pressure and your artery problem in 14 days, and you'll have 105/70 blood pressure. Yes?
My nephew just got diagnosed with
Throat cancer? 105 degrees Fahrenheit atmospheric chamber, 2 atmospheres. That's a barometric chamber used for deep sea divers. Keep you at 32 pounds per square inch air pressure. 28 pounds of air pressure. Stops your blistering at 105 degrees Fahrenheit. IV drip, put the person to sleep. Use sodium pentothal to knock you out for 125 hours at 105 degrees. You will have tubes in, tubes out for waste, nutrients in. You'll wake up in 5 days. The throat cancer will be dead because no cancer can reproduce itself under fever. It's a 100% cure, no side effects. Mayo Clinic, Minnesota. Does it. So does Atlanta, Georgia, Mayo Clinic. Only 2 procedures. It was discovered in the American Indians have been doing the sweat tent for 400 years, curing cancer. Remember, they go into the sweat tent. They hallucinate, see the Great Spirit for 72 hours. You hallucinate at 105 degrees. As long as you're in hallucination, your brain is at 105 degrees, and so is your body. Because it's in a steam environment of hot rocks with steam, you don't dehydrate. You're inhaling enough water to replenish your sweating. And you drink fluid, all heat. And it's done for 72 hours. That cures about 99%. Some of your things like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, throat cancer, brain cancer. 105 degrees, 125 hours. 2 atmospheres pressure. Oxygen level is 16.8, not 14. 16.8. Because you got to boost the oxygen by 2%. Creates a oxidized blood chemistry. And no cancer can reproduce itself under fever. 105 degrees stops the reproduction, and no cancer cell of the 1,800 different cancers that exist can exceed beyond 125 hours. They will all die, 100% will die without reproducing, and your body will be purged. The human cell can go 90 days at 105 degrees. You only got to do 5. They will have no side effects. Nope, you're asleep under sodium pentothal. Your whole body is completely kept asleep. You have a heart pacer to hooked up, so your heart is electronically monitored and timed so that there's no interruption of your heartbeat. And use an anesthesiologist to create the chemical IV drip that will create an artificial fever. The atmosphere of the barometric chamber is also heated to 105 degrees, so it's stable, both internal and external.
But he does not have any money. He's still paying hospital bill that he
If you
accumulated when he had an accident earlier.
It's not an excuse for murder, so I'll give you the cure. You go to the Mayo Clinic, they'll take care of it. Is it a child?
He's old.
Oh, because if it happens to your children, the Shriners Hospital in Chicago will take care of that for children that have cancer or birth defects.
So would they take care of him?
They may if he's poor, but Mayo Clinic will probably take him in if he applies for it.
He's also hemophilia.
It's a 5-day cure. So my recommendation is go to Mayo Clinic, explain your situation, and you might qualify. Obamacare might kick in. else. Popped white rice corn. It's only found in white rice popcorn. It's one, but when it can penetrate through the cells of a human being, and it will go in and will clean out the plaque that causes high blood pressure. In 2 weeks, white rice popcorn. Air pop it, put as much butter and salt on as you want, has no effect. Popcorn neutralizes cholesterol in the bloodstream. And you'd be right back to normal. Don't have to take your blood pressure. Oh, that's another thing. Anybody on Tylenol PM and you know this person, might be a senior citizen, Tylenol PM and high blood pressure medicine causes Alzheimer's in 5 to 10 days. You won't be able to find your way back to your house if you're on that combination of chemicals. So don't do it. You can take regular Tylenol, but don't take Tylenol PM. Any PM medicines mixed with high blood pressure medicine will wipe out your memory. And if you're in that condition, you're going to wind up in a nursing home, and there's nothing wrong with you. As soon as you stop taking it takes about 5 days to flush your system. Put a little baking soda, half a teaspoon a day, and neutralize that, and you'll be back to normal. Yes?
I have a question. A friend of mine had a property that sold it. It was actually a couple months behind. Would you be able to do this for that?
Sure. Even though he sold the property, he can still go back after his caretaker fees, his guardian fees from the bank, because he was never paid that. They'll adjust. The amount of money can be adjusted for any monies he may have taken out in the form of second mortgages, refinances, stuff like that. Those all get worked out after the fact. But fraud is still fraud. And the U.S. Attorney's Office is looking at $20 million a pop everywhere for one of these files, so still cooperate. Otherwise,
We've talked to you about different things. I guess my question is, do you have the proper paperwork and stuff that we need to take home today for his case? And then the mortgage thing, do we have our stuff? Do you want it today, or do you prefer us to?
we'll have to get together afterwards and discuss that. Okay. I don't know exactly what it is. I can read it in 15 seconds and tell you what you need. Okay. So, outside of that, guys, I'm always available by the internet. This is give you my contact information here. My DWAWRO. My website is DWM. Address, all correct. And my M and the number lowercase. So that's how you get a hold of me. If you want to do video seminars if you have a support group, call me, make an appointment. We'll do a 2-hour video seminar on Skype. I'm going to be unavailable until the 20th of October. I'm going to be traveling. I've got a bunch of seminars I'm doing in California, in Hawaii. So you can always get me on the cell phone and on the internet. I will have internet 24/7 as I have my own independent router it's portable that I travel with. It works anywhere in the United States. If a cell phone works, my router works. So that's about all I got for you tonight. And if you cook up some good questions, send me some emails and I'll answer them. And for those that want to get involved with doing lawsuits with me, contact me. I charge a flat $3,000 for anybody that wants to do the mortgage contracts. And the syntaxing, the fault judgment, any follow-ups that would take place, the contacts with Tyrone Williams in the U.S. Attorney's Office, any court issues that come up where a judge is going to get attitude, be more than happy to participate. It'll be fun. So thank you for coming to my seminar.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.